Hello and welcome to episode 2 of CTB Tyre Talks, where we sit down and talk to the leading voices in the commercial tyre and agricultural tyre space on a diverse range of subjects and topics that are impacting business today. Episode 2 sees an interview with Olly Harrison, a well-known British farmer and Alliance brand ambassador. We managed to talk to Olly during Yokohama-ATG's brand influencer trip to India, where the Alliance brand ambassadors experienced the tyre manufacturing process and engaged with local farmers on a range of farming topics and issues. At the time of publication, Olly has 126,000 followers on Instagram and 147,000 subscribers on YouTube. So we were really excited to talk to Olly regarding his experience on the trip, his impressions on Alliance as a company, and what more can be done to educate farmers to get the most out of their tyres. So, without any further ado, here's that interview right now. Okay, Olly, thanks for joining us here today at the end of this quite intense but busy trip we've had, haven't we? So obviously we've had a good factory visit on Tuesday. We had a farm day yesterday. Maybe could you start with what were your highlights of the factory trip yesterday? And, what was your reaction to the technology and the processes you saw in the factory?
Yeah, although I'd Googled it before I went, it still wasn't what I was expecting. I just didn't expect it to be, in one essence, clean. I thought there'd be black rubber and smoke and flame, all that kind of stuff flying around. But it was just clean, crisp, huge, absolutely huge. And, not dissimilar to some of the tractor factories have been around where you've got robots doing some of the production work and the heavy lifting. Yeah, I was just amazed really that it was, to be fair, it's 3 years old, that factory. It should look like that, I suppose. But when you drive down some of the streets, you're like, there can't possibly be a factory down here. But there was. So I don't know whether the wagon's coming a different way to what we did, but it was amazing.
Yeah, I remember yesterday, you mentioned how you were taken aback by the amount of materials you saw and the ingredients that were going into the tyres yesterday. Yeah. You saying you were quite maybe not amazed, but you commented yesterday.
They talk about rubber compounds, and they were saying that they use a different blend for different tyres, and brag tyres and one specific kind. If they were to make a road version, it'd be a bit different again. And then obviously, like the cross sections, you can actually see the different wires and the different threads that they use to make the I want to call it cords, but the bead rain at
No, it is amazing the amount of materials components go into tyres.
And then the really big ones are just absolutely colossal, and you just think, wow.
No, you're right.
And what I didn't think we'd see, and I don't know why, but how they make the rubber to start with. Like you think they'd just, like the rubber would be some sort of liquid and they just put it in a mold. But no, it's made out of, like making a cake. They make the rubber and then they can mold the rubber to what they want. And then at the point where they've got it to what they want, they add sulfur to it, and then that sets it then, and that's what makes a tyre.
No, exactly. It is amazing. When you see it like that, you can see the technology and the detail behind the process and how that feeds into adapting a tyre for a specific use, So obviously thinking a little bit about just on the factory, how was that visit to the factory sort of enhanced and further informed your view of Alliance as a company?
Well, when you see something that's manufactured in India, you see the vision in your head is tuk-tuks flying around and people beeping the horn, which they're doing over the But the factory, it felt like the ones I've been around in Europe. It was totally different. And the staff was so enthusiastic at what they were doing. I think people buy off people, and knowing that the people are enthusiastic at what they're doing, and the fact that they're making it with the right infrastructure and the right kit, should we say. I mean, a set of scales accurate to 0.4 of a gram, 0.0004 of a gram. It's just phenomenal.
No, that
the tolerance is just amazing.
It's insane. Yeah, it's that
I think that attention to detail is so key when you're trying to provide these
and they were cutting some up and testing the ply, and they had, you know, like marks out of 10. It had to be over 10 or 99 point whatever percent. But they had a chart to see if there was something wrong. They knew what it would be.
It was the attention to detail, and you can see the passion in each of those offices. We went around at their role.
I suppose though, you know, they've done it for a long time, and they've got to get it right, because, you know, you rely on them, and especially on those, you know, it's important that they work, that they don't fail.
No, exactly. You know, and as you said, like when, you know, you've got people like yourselves promoting the range, you need to make sure that that product's being delivered accordingly for people like yourselves, and not just people like yourselves, but the wider community that feed into that. You know. So obviously moving away from the factory visit, and thinking about tire knowledge, and, you know, and your role as a brand ambassador for Alliance. I'd like to know, like, from your perspective, why you think it's important for farmers to know more about, you know, to have more tire knowledge, and how, you know, having that tire knowledge can make their farming more efficient. And, you know, why did you take up the challenge of become involved?
Yeah, I mean, I think the last 10 years, agriculture has got so much harder. Everyone's realised that they need to be as efficient as possible. And we use our soil to grow everything. You know, we need to protect our soil. And the technology in tyres they're not just black circles. You know, we can run some of these VF tyres at such low pressures to protect that soil. And I think farmers aren't stupid. But going back 20, 30 years, it kind of didn't matter. They just, as long as it had grip on it, they just went. Was now everyone's realising, no, hold on a second, these black circles can do more for us, and people are setting them to the right pressure and getting more out of them, using less fuel, being more efficient. You know, that's what it's all about. And when Alliance kind of came to me and said, could they work with me, having used their tyres in the past, I met the people behind it. You know, you don't want to be working with someone that's it's not true, shall we say? They literally live and breathe tyre, and just get really excited about it. And, you know, we did the combine run, was it 2 years ago? And it's Alliance tyres on the back of the combine. And, you know, we rang up to see what pressure, and it was Garrick actually then word out the pressure for us, because we were doing 940 miles on the combine. You know, they had to be right. And he's still so enthusiastic. When I meet him now, he still talks about that day when he got the phone call. What? He's doing what?
He loves the job.
Do.
But, you know, that's a key thing as well. When you're selling product, when you're telling people about it, you need that passion to come through to bring people along with you, I think.
Yeah, and you know, we've had such a laugh with everyone. And, you know, we've met the big bosses, and they've been, you know, there's no to any, you know, we're just everyone's the same level, and we've just had an absolute ball for the last 4 days in Italy.
No, I completely agree. And it's interesting you said there about the fact that you were using Alliance's tyres before you started working closely with them. I suppose that must make the decision much easier when someone says to you.
In the past, we've spec telehandlers with standard tyres, knowing that we were going to fit Alliance.
No, absolutely. And just continuing talking about Alliance, you know, what do you think they bring to the table for farmers in general? And, you know, what's been your impression of what's your overall impression of them as a company since you became involved with them?
I mean, what they can bring is pretty much a tyre to fit anything that you need. But the fact that there's backup behind it, there's someone to talk to, there's technical assistance. You know, if there was a problem, there's someone to sort it. There's a name of a person. You know, there's field engineers all over Europe that will get on a plane and come and see us if it's wrong, or come and see what you need, you know, and advise people.
Absolutely. Yeah. You mentioned as well there about the tyre knowledge and about farmers learning more in the education about in the educational process. I was just wondering if you had any thoughts about, you know, what more companies can do in general to support farmers in that regard, and to just make their farming more efficient.
I think it's the communication. It's the two-way. Like you see manufacturers at trade shows, and go and have a chat with them. You might not need a set of tyres, but you might have a set of tyres already that they can advise you to use better or get longer life out of them. And also, when you do need them, you'll have the informed decision then of what you need to buy to best suit. Because just swapping light for light might not be the best option.
Yeah.
You know, like our telehandler, we've swapped some, you know, not light for light. We've put 585s on. So they're really hard wearing because that telehandler lives in the yard most of the time. So it didn't need a field tyre. And equally, the yard tyre won't scrub on the road. So, you know, it's getting something right and looking what there is there, because they might all look the same but just different sizes.
Yeah.
But inside, they are actually so different. And we've seen that at the factory when they've cut them open and we're showing
this,
and explaining how they did it.
I suppose as well that it feeds into a little bit. So, you know, the best option for you might not be the best option for someone down the road, and then you know, someone like Alliance adapting that knowledge and that service to that particular customer.
Finding out what you need, what that machine does, what its applications are, what weight it carries, where it spends most of its time. Because everything will be a compromise. You know, our telehandler that lives in the yard the most, it still goes in the field. But equally, it's a hybrid tyre and it can. You know, it's all these different things. If it was permanently in the field, they'd have recommended a different kind. You know, it's just horses for courses.
Absolutely. I mean, we've covered quite a bit of ground there. And just before we wrap up, I just wondered if you had anything else you want to say on Alliance as a company, or any other final words on this trip we've had this week.
They're a great bunch of staff. If you're at a show, come and say hi to them. And also when you hear the name Made in India, India is just it's from, I don't know how to describe it best. To use Garrick's words, you know, everything in India is contrast. You know, if they're doing something like making tyres, you know, they're right up there with the technology and the facility. I mean, the factory is going to be mostly air-conned and completely air-conned by, is it April this year? Or summer sets in? It's going to be, it's already net zero, I think. It's going to be completely powered by solar and wind. You know, they know what they're doing. And that's one thing. But when you see, it's such a big place, 1.7 billion people living here, you know, you are going to see some people riding along in a motorbike held together by bits of string and wood. That's just contrast.
Exactly.
But they'll have a smile on their face and they'll probably be on their way to work and they've got it up here.
Exactly. No, absolutely. No. Well, thank you for joining us, Ollie. I'm sure I'll see you at Agritechnica.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah.
And there you go. That is it for episode 2. And that is our interview with Olly Harrison. Thanks again to Olly for participating in that interview. And a big thanks to Yokohama-ATG for organising the trip and liaising on that interview. We'll be back very soon with episode 3 of CTB Tyre Talks. Until then, thank you for watching.